The worth of a state, in the long run, is the worth of the individuals composing it. War is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling which thinks that nothing is worth war is much worse. A person may cause evil to others not only by his actions but by his inaction, and in either case, he is justly accountable to them for the injury. The individual is not accountable to society for his actions in so far as these concern the interests of no person but himself. The only freedom which deserves the name is that of pursuing our own good in our own way, so long as we do not attempt to deprive others of theirs, or impede their efforts to obtain it. It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied, better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. The worth of a book is to be measured by what you can carry away from it, over himself, over his body and mind. The individual is sovereign. Actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness. The greatest harm done is to those we do not consider, to those whose interests we do not seriously regard. The most cogent reason for restricting the interference of government is the great evil of adding unnecessarily to its power. He who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that. Every great movement must experience three stages: ridicule, discussion, adoption. The peculiar evil of silencing the expression of an opinion is that it is robbing the human race. The individual's own good is his absolute moral duty. The worth of a state, in the long run, is the worth of the individuals composing it. The despotism of custom is everywhere the standing hindrance to human advancement. A man who has nothing which he is willing to fight for, nothing which he cares more about than he does about his personal safety, is a miserable creature. I am not aware that any community has a right to force another to be civilized. The liberty of the individual must be thus far limited. He must not make himself a nuisance to other people. The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community, against his will, is to prevent harm to others. Human nature is not a machine to be built after a model and set to do exactly the work prescribed for it, but a tree which requires to grow and develop itself on all sides, according to the tendency of the inward forces which make it a living thing. To tax the larger incomes at a higher percentage than the smaller is to lay a tax on industry and economy, to impose a penalty on people for having worked harder and saved more than their neighbors. A state which dwarfs its men, in order that they may be more docile instruments in its hands even for beneficial purposes, will find that with small men no great thing can really be accomplished. It is, perhaps, hardly necessary to say that this doctrine is meant to apply only to human beings in the maturity of their faculties. The worth of a state, in the long run, is the worth of the individuals composing it. The idea that truth always triumphs over persecution is one of those pleasant falsehoods which most experience refutes sooner or later. I am not aware that any community has a right to force another to be civilized. The person who has nothing for which he is willing to fight, nothing which is more important than his own personal safety, is a miserable creature and has no chance of being free unless made and kept so by the exertions of better men than himself. He who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that. The despotism of custom is everywhere the standing hindrance to human advancement. It is not because men's desires are strong that they act ill. It is because their consciences are weak.